I wanted to make sure that I did something better than my parents and all that kind of stuff. Just to get there, I had to learn new skills. It's always like I never knew what to do. Nobody was a mentor to me, and I had to just kind of pick things up. And so when I started sort of figuring these things out, I never thought about creating a YouTube channel.
This is Aman Bansil. Handles are going to be on screen as well. It's really great to finally get a talk with you, man. It feels like you're really busy a lot of times, and any days I don't see at least 10 TikToks from you, I get worried. I'm like, uh-oh, what's going on?
Yeah, man. You know, I try to like kind of rapid fire those things whenever I got a little bit of time. And you have no idea. Sometimes I'm just like in between getting my grocery and returning, like in the car about to drive away. And I'm just like, all right, time for like 2 TikToks, you know? And so I just try to make it, because I tried to do it where I was like, oh, all right, this is like TikTok time, 1-2 hours. I'm going to sit down and make TikToks, but it just never works out because there's like, life is just kind of a little busy. For your viewers, you know, it's I just had a baby a few months ago. She's about 7.5 right now, but she's still a handful. So, you know, work and baby and everything, it just there's a lot of time missing from my life. So I have to make time for this kind of stuff. So I'll still make it though, right? I'm still pretty good. I answer every single question. I'm following the Gary V model, and he's like reply every single question, and because you never know who's asking that one question that's gonna like, you know, be the one that everybody's kind of waiting for. So I definitely do that.
All of your content is like, it's not even like just like a quick answer. You go like really into detail. You kind of give like many different perspectives, but you also give like this, but this is what I believe. Like I just find it pretty intense and really ambitious of you that you have such great TikTok content out there, but I don't see enough like engagement.
Yeah. You know, it's one of those things where things take time, right? Like, so I started with 1 subscriber or 0 actually. And then finally I got to like 100, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. 100. And then we got to about 300, then I got to about 500. And that was like really huge. And then once I started uploading randomly, because what happened was I tried to get my, you know, drive in something. I can get it from any place, like, you know, a beginner, an intermediate person, an advanced person. I don't care who it is, but they can sort of trigger something in me where it's like, you know, hey, you should do it this way because this way works. And so I'm kind of just browsing through videos, and Gary V video pops up, and he's like, don't judge yourself when you put up that video. And even though you're not shaved properly, even though you're not dressed up properly, you don't look like, you know, Graham Stephan or Meet Kevin and like that, like, you know, amazing sets and all that kind of stuff and multi-million-dollar houses and everything. You can still provide some value, and you just don't know what's gonna hit. So instead of sitting there and just wondering which video to make and then censoring yourself, like I had videos where I was just like, not good enough, I'm not gonna upload this. Not good enough, I'm not gonna upload this. And that went on for a while. I just started doing that, and then all of a sudden it would be like this. It would be like 50 videos or 10, 15 videos, and like one thing went up kind of in views that I didn't expect. And then here and there, I would get a video that kind of gets $100,000 likes, and I'm just like, whoa! I'm like, what is happening there? And it would be the oddest video that gets a lot of likes. Like, for example, I just made a video about Groupon and how Groupon had, in my opinion, I'm not a financial advisor, that their moat, their competitive advantage in the market wasn't so great, so they couldn't hold on to their market share. And so I was talking about this, and lo and behold, that thing is like just shooting up, and people are commenting left and right. I don't get why. Right? I've made videos about so much other stuff, but something about that video hit, and algorithm picked it up, and boom, it's just like on its way.
I think it's because Groupon's been around and been like, it's still in the back of everyone's mind, but nobody really makes content about it, right? And so like that's what I kind of noticed while I'm looking at some of your hits. Because I'll see like, okay, you have like 1,000 views here, 100 views here, and that's kind of like the norm. But every once in a while, 12,000 views, 50,000 views, 60,000 views, right? So you never know what's going to hit. And have you seen like any trends that you can pull from that so that you can like try to aim further more?
Okay. Yes. What people really like is content dense, right? So people don't like motivational stuff. For some reason, it just doesn't click. Like, you know, if you're like, you know, you should do this because it just doesn't sort of get that virality. But if it's content dense, that means statistics, that means you pull different metrics from some places and collect them all into one 60 seconds. But 60 seconds works best, and not 15 and not 90 or whatever the other length of 3 minutes, right? Not that.
Yeah.
But 60 for some reason hits the best. And so that's what I've found, where I have to first create some type of a hook of some kind in the initial like 5 seconds, where it's like, hey, stick around for this because I'm going to teach you XYZ right now. And part of me hates this because it's like, man, I don't want to sound like everybody else. It's going to start to sound like a template where I'm like, all right, hook, and then deliver the thing, and then remind them or something like that. But maybe this is the way to do this. And,
I feel like that's the trick, dude. I feel like it is. Like, I'm looking at all my videos, and I only started at the beginning of this month, actually. And I'm seeing like everyone's watching my videos up to about 5 to 6 seconds, and then they'll leave. I'm like, whoa, what the heck's going on? Like, and I'm like hearing you say that, and also seeing like other channels that are saying like, you got to hook them. You got to make sure like at this specific time, you got to get them. And I'm like, I'm starting to learn like at 6 seconds, I think that's like the attention span of someone. And if you haven't gotten them by then, they're out. They're like, I'm just going to give you this many seconds, but not even thinking that,
Yeah, I think there's two kind of different things to look at. One is the content is so gripping that people are like, just tell me what this is, and I'm ready to wait for 60 seconds, right? Or watch the whole thing. So that's one thing. The content has to be like pulling you into this thing, right? The other thing is the video and the edits and the way you're like sort of putting your video together. And I noticed that there's some guys out there in the finance space where they're just like every 5 seconds or 3 to 5 seconds, there's a cut. It's just like words coming on screen, something happening, right? Some of them go way overboard where it's just like, man, I can't even watch this anymore. I just have to find that happy medium. So I think what it is you have to meet the audience where they're at, what they like, and then you gotta kind of go beyond that, and that's your little flair that you put on top of it. But the thing is, though, outliers work too. Like, outliers meaning if you could be doing something totally different from the norm, and you would get a huge following because you're just like that, and people love that about you. There are some finance YouTubers which they don't have cool backgrounds and audio, video. They just kind of talk, and they're just sitting on their couch and they're doing great. There's a guy from New York, I forget his name right now, but he's always on his couch talking about stuff, and he's always like, what pisses me off, and he's just like talking to a normal camera, like a cell phone camera or something like that, and then there's a guy named Bia Heza, I think his name is. I
like his channel. His channel's great. Yeah.
Right. But you see how gripping it is? Like every time you want, like he's like, all right, here's what we're gonna do, and it's like always entertaining. Like this guy's gonna go from $1,000 to $1 million. I'm like, that's entertaining.
He's got a mouth on him, but he's also testing like a lot of different things that are mainstream, but like he takes it where everyone wants to take it, right? They all want to test it and get it to like test at this level. And he's the only channel that actually does that. Everyone else are like, oh, I should test it, but they don't really go the whole way.
That's right. He actually does what he's gonna say he's gonna do. He just tries different things, right? And so the comedy factor of it, the information dense factor of it, the rate of speaking, right? I've noticed I tend to be very like long-winded, like you said, and kind of slower, right? And so I need help in that. So I'm kind of using these videos as also to train myself to be a better speaker, right? And to not to say and to have like 50,000 cuts because I'm saying all those things. I still do it, but the thing is though, the idea is that you keep repeating, and then you keep having interviews like this so that you can actually speak for a long time. You just gotta it's like a muscle, man. You gotta just kind of keep doing it.
How long have you been doing your YouTube for? I was trying to find your TikTok start level. I kept scrolling. I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever get there.
I had started YouTube in 2016.
Wow,
So I'm a music producer too. I make like EDM music. I was doing that on YouTube. So I was teaching music stuff on YouTube. I had some success in it, right? So some of the videos got ranked. So people would type in certain keywords which were kind of known to the people in the industry, like for example, making a piano on this thing called Serum. And so people would like just all over that thing. And so I kind of got some of the videos ranked, and therefore I started getting views. And I accumulated like 1,000 followers that way.
Wow.
But the thing is though, it's just something that I didn't want to continue with. I think my just heart was in like finance. business and kind of doing that type of stuff, because I saw my own accounts, benefiting from what I was doing. And I was like, hey, nobody else is talking about, because everybody was talking about, well, if you invest $100 a month and you can get to like a millionaire at 65. I'm like, dude, you can do it so much faster. But all I heard was these people who were like, buy my book and my course, and I'll make you a millionaire in 6 months. And I was like, that's messed up. So it's like there's so much of that knowledge culture where there's people just talking about stuff which is kind of outlandish sometimes. There's literally just scams, MLM stuff. There's literal scams. So it's just, when you look at the landscape and you're thinking, okay, if you aren't one of those and you're not in the camp where, okay, if it takes 65 years, I'm happy. If you're in the middle somewhere where you want to get done faster, how do you get there actually, right?
Yeah.
And I didn't think about this, when I was kind of going through my life to create a life like this, but it just happened to be that way because we just didn't have enough money kind of growing up, and we kind of had enough, and just not enough, just enough to pay rent and things like that, and live a decent life. I wanted to make sure that I kind of, did something better, right, than my parents and all that kind of stuff. So just to get there, I had to learn new skills. It's always like I never knew what to do. Nobody was a mentor to me, and I had to just kind of pick things up. And so when I started sort of figuring these things out, I never thought about like creating a YouTube channel, because it's just like never crossed my mind. So 2016, I make a YouTube channel for music. 2017, I'm doing some stuff. 2018, I just stopped recording altogether.
Aww.
Yeah, just like I was done with it. And then middle to the end of 2019, I started picking it back up. I was still making music content because I didn't know what else to do. But then I started to make like travel, because I started traveling. I was like, here, let me try to make some travel stuff. And that hit a little bit. It was good, but then my heart wasn't in it. Yeah. So then I realized, okay, let's do some financing. And that's 2020, literally 2020, beginning of 2020 is when I made my first like finance video. I knew that space was for me because I could see my real estate, my stocks, everything doing great, even though we're in a crazy bull run. The fact that they were doing great gave me some confidence to be able to talk about it, right? And to be able to like kind of help people who were just like, because there's so much misinformation as to how you get there. So I just said, what the hell do I call this channel? And right away, in like 5 seconds, I was like, crush the wealth gap. And I was like, all right, that's it. I started to talk about how can we get people who just don't have much at all? How do we get them to have something? And then how do we get the people in the middle who have something going on and have a decent job? How do we get them a better job? How do we get them to invest more? Parts of it is to educate. Parts of it is to motivate. Sometimes people don't even know that things are possible. That's the craziest place to be at, because that was me. I was like 26 is when I purchased my first freaking stock, and I was talking about it since I was 18 because I was just too scared to buy a stock.
Was this even when you were playing margin too? Was it 26?
Yeah, 26, 27 is when I started playing with a little bit of margin. Yeah. But man, it just ramped up when I met this friend who was like, oh, let's go to Interactive Brokers and let's just borrow crazy amounts of money. And
I remember you telling me about it. Yeah.
Dude, we were getting that money at 0.75%, which is insane at that time.
That's such a freaking cheap rate, man. Right now, I think it's 1.5 is the cheapest you have. And you need to have like 200 or 300K in there.
We were like, I was doing 100% over, so 2x. And my friend was like dabbling with like 2 to 4x, and I was like, ugh. So I suffered for this, man. Trust me, I learned a bad lesson. But the thing is,
I saw the video,
after that lesson was learned, where I lost a bunch of money, I knew not to do that again. My friend did not. This is where I'm different from other people. If I do something and it doesn't work, I quit.
That's good. Okay, that's what you're supposed to do. Yeah.
I don't quit the game, but I quit that method, right?
Yeah.
Because that method didn't work. The market gives you signals. It tells you. So there's a study out that I saw where they said most traders actually don't accept market signals for up to 10 years. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And that was certainly true with me, where you get a bad signal from the market and you get another one, and another one, and you won't accept it until you've completely exhausted yourself or your account's down to zero.
Can you define what these what is an example of a market signal?
Oh, a market signal is simply you lost money. You made a trade and you lost money.
That's
the signal market is giving you. Your strategy doesn't work, but you don't internalize it. You say, "Oh, that stock, man, like that stock didn't do right. Oh, by the way, this guy, set this policy in the White House, and it caused my stocks to go down. Or that prince bought that stock. You will find every single excuse except for the fact that you didn't do your due diligence and you didn't do risk risk management properly, right?
Yeah.
So it's really difficult to look in the mirror and say, oh, I'm the problem. Oh, okay, got it. So, and then that's how you can fix yourself.
I think my way of mitigating that right now is, of course, I don't go leverage yet. I will only do that if I can get consistent, but I have a long-term portfolio and I have a shorter-term portfolio for those that I day trade with, right? And of course, that's not consistent yet either. And sometimes I do, and your voice comes to my mind, and I have a few friends' voices that come to my mind. It's like, just go the index fund route, right? Just put money into the SPY or your VT Sachs and just go that route.
You know, it's interesting, man. Like when I went all index, right? After a loss, right? By the way, when a loss like mine occurs, where I lost over like 90% of my account, it's you basically like, it's like a gut punch, and you can't quite catch your breath. It's a strange feeling because you're like in a twilight zone for a little bit. You're just like, did it just happen? Did it actually happen? I think it's like, what do they call it? The levels of grief or something like that, stages of grief. I think you go through all of them, right? And then my first call I got from my friend was like, what the hell happened? Like he lost money too, right? I blew up my account. First thing he said was, are you out? Are you in? Like, are you going back in? I'm like, of course I'm going back in. That's the first knee-jerk reaction, right? You're a guy, right? You're like, of course I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to go figure out where the money's coming from. I'm going to go back in. We can't lose all on this. And then I went home and I said, what the hell am I thinking? No, I got to stop.
Yeah.
Right. And that's when I just like paused everything. And then for, I think about 4 to 6 months or so, 6 months, maybe a bit more, I just didn't open anything. I didn't read a single news article, a single 10K report, anything. I just didn't look at any ticker symbol. I didn't even open my account that had the loss in it. Nothing. I just didn't do anything. I think that was good because I kind of just like hit pause and long held the reset button. I said, all right. And then I said,
everything in there. Yeah.
Exactly. Discharge everything. And I plugged it back in. And then the first thing I thought was, okay, if I was wrong, then, and my friend's wrong, but because he's the one who was guiding me through this, by the way, all my fault for following him. But it's just that, when you get information, it's just, it's hard to validate it because some people, when they speak with such conviction that you believe them.
Yeah.
And if you're naive like I was, I believed them. And also I didn't do my own due diligence properly enough. I did it just enough, but in the context of what he was telling me. So be careful with that. Do your own due diligence, like truly, and do that, right? And so the first thing that occurred to me, like, who can teach me how to invest properly? And I said, Warren Buffett. That's the number one freaking guy, right? And my mind said Warren Buffett. And I said, okay, let me go pick up the books or whatever. Let's figure it out. I started doing just binging YouTube Warren Buffett, right? And just binging Warren Buffett different speeches and whatever interviews. And then one speech is commencement speech. And he's talking about what kind of allocation that we should have as general public. And he says, most people should have 90% of their money in the S&P 500 and never touch it. And the rest of it, put it in short-term government bonds. And I said, okay, what the heck is an index? And so I started searching. Oh, you can buy the top 500 companies. Okay. So I said, all right, that's it. That's what I'm going to do because it's Warren Buffett. I have conviction in that person because he's got reputation. I'm going to go ahead and go with that. And now, mind you, I'm still not doing my due diligence right now, right? I'm just like trying to find a way to move forward. After my account blew up, there was about 37 to 40 grand left in there.
Up from 800, right? 800,000?
So my account peaked at about 480, something like that. So when I say peak, that means I invested a certain amount and it went up. And then at the peak, it was like at 480 something. It was 800 something because the margin. You get what I'm saying, right? Okay, so half of it is borrowed money. So totally bad. When I had that amount of money left, I said, okay, I'm going to go ahead and index this. And I went ahead and got myself a Vanguard account, indexed it. And then I said, okay, what else can we do? And I said, all right, I have a house. So I started looking at the house and how to sell the house and sold that house and got 240 to 70,000, I think, something like that. Dump it into the index.
Wait. Don't you need a place to live? You're not living in that house?
We moved.
I see, but you still have the house.
It's gone. So we had moved before the loss happened. We had moved before that.
Okay.
Yeah, because life reasons, we wanted to be around the LA area. That house was on rent, so I could use that money. So I went ahead and sold it. I put it up for like 530, and then somebody gave me 531. I'm like, all right, good enough. And I sold it right away. So got lucky there. That money right there, so about 200 something, whatever thousand, was really the big seed money that I needed to kind of jumpstart my indexing. And then I started learning a lot more about it. It's the opposite when you're doing this, right? But then I started to really dig in. I'm like, why am I buying an index? What is an index? And why does it work? And then there's studies out there. You make yourself familiar with the studies. Started reading books by John Bogle and said, okay, I now understand what this is, why I need to keep going. And then as I understood more and more, my conviction grew. Once I have conviction in something, what I tend to do is I just kind of zoom in on it and just kind of go all in because I know it'll work. I knew that when I'm buying the total stock market of America, I'm essentially saying, you know what, whatever America bakes every single year, I'm going to take a slice of that. And then I also have the same thing, but the international version, which is the VTIAX. So I'll just go ahead and say, okay, well, hey, whatever the entire human race on this planet makes in a year, I'll take a bite. Yeah. If the human race collectively loses money, okay, cool. I'm happy to lose money with the human race. If the human race makes 10%, I'll make 10% as well. So that is where my conviction came from, the fact that I'm not buying a single company. I don't have to look at anything. I don't have to look at a single mode of a company. I can just buy the entire market and just focus on actually putting money into the scheme rather than trying to get more and more money from the investments I'm kind of trying to trade.
I think you've probably gotten this question before, but what do you think about Michael Burry's position now of that big drop coming because of everyone going into indexes and not really doing, their due diligence on companies, but just believing that these top companies should stay where they are right now, and that big index fund bubble will pop one day? What are your thoughts on that?
I'll give you two things on that. Number one is VFIAX, which is the top 500 companies, right? There's definitely froth there. Okay, there's like probably 15 to 20%, something like that. There's a froth on top at least, which is basically people trying to put money into that because of storing value, right? Not because it's worth that much. It's just because they want to store their money somewhere. So there's some of that's going to correct no matter what. The other thing is what happens when there's a drop. For a guy like me, we welcome drops because think about it, right? I'm nowhere near my retirement, right? Yeah. I'm nowhere near my retirement. So what would I do in a drop? I would do exactly what I did in 2020. What happened was the whole thing dropped. I went on a buying spree. I went on such a buying. So by the way, I lost my job in 2020, but I got severance and PTO and all that kind of stuff. Nice. I got a chunk of cash, like 50K sitting around. I'm like, I'm going to start buying. Here went the market like this. I'm like, buy. It went really dropped. I'm like, buy. It started coming back. I'm like, buy. And that year I gained about like 200 grand or so, and just in capital gains because of sticking around and buying as the thing was tanking. So guess what? When Armageddon happens to stocks, right? I will be there to buy, and that's one of the reasons why I keep a good job around. I'm making above 200K a year. Yep. That means every single paycheck I can make a huge dent in my portfolio. People have to wait an entire 6 months to collect the kind of money that I can collect in about a month's time, because I'm able to utilize the skills I have in IT, negotiate better rates. And that's one of the things that I teach, where like start to think about increasing your income, because the whole entrepreneur thing is great, if you're good at it, but man, 90% more than 90%,
they don't make it.
Yeah, they don't make it, man. And I'm trying to help the normal people who aren't entrepreneurs, who aren't doing all this other stuff.
That's your avatar,
just to get them like better wages. Just don't think about $15 an hour or $30 an hour. Let's go higher here. Let's gather the skills to get there. It's possible because I've done it. My wife's done it. I've seen other people do it who came out of junior, high school, and then got like an AA degree and went into IT. So it's possible. It's not just IT. There's other fields too. But it's just that once you sort of get into a field, you know more about it. So that's where I have the knowledge. And so I focus on that. So if there's a downturn, I have a network big enough where I can go ahead and reach out to people and say, hey, I'm free. What projects do you have going on? And I can kind of consult here and there. I'm consulting right now with the company, with a CIO who hired me without any interviews at all. Like I got hired because he called me and said, hey, can you start next week? And I did.
No, I really love your channel because you specifically go into detail on like, hey, if you want to increase your salary, there are certain industries where you go for the certificates, right? When you go for the training and certificates, that's going to help you, give you the credibility that companies want to be able to hire you on and give you a better wage.
It's the best time because even Google has said, hey, we don't want you to have degrees because guess what? The curriculum is not teaching you what we as Google want to have you be doing at work. So they created their own little university. You can take these courses and start applying at Google. Let's say a crash does happen, right? My game plan would be to continue to work and continue to buy. And what's going to happen is there's a magical thing that happens after a crash. So check this out. Crash happens and I'm just like gun-ho buying, right? I'm telling my wife, sorry, we can't buy a new car. Sorry, we can't buy a new house. Right now, I got to invest. And she understands, right? And so right now, for example, I sold a car and we're not buying a new car because we don't want to spend the money right now. So you would buy. And then as now you start to recover, because it will recover, it may take 10 years. Okay. I totally get that. When that recovers, it's going to be so much faster. Like the total net worth increase that happens in that time frame will be so much higher than what it would have been if we did not have a crash. And by the way, we will have a crash. We always have crashes. Crashes are normal because things don't go up all the time. But if you take a look at the S&P 500, don't look at the linear graph. Go check out the logarithmic graph of S&P 500 for the past 100 years. You'll see a graph like this. It's like kind of moving a little bit, but it's going up. And again, we are talking about the human race and the ability to create wealth over time. We are on the precipice of, like, first of all, I'm not buying NFTs or anything like that, but NFTs are going to be a thing. Okay, the fact that
and DeFi,
you're going to be you're going to be able to buy a house with NFT, contract. All these things are going to be a thing. Metaverse is going to be a thing. Digital property is going to be a thing. Bitcoin's going to be a thing. Bitcoin's the payment layers like Bitcoin will survive and thrive because of how simple they are. You can build on top of it. So right now is an amazing time to buy, amazing time to have a crash. Because the gears, the technology, the potential is so there. Everybody sees it, right? Even if we crash, by the way, NFTs 90% are going to go to zero, 99% even. But the ones that survive, that the technology that survives, it's going to be like, you won't believe that we had to go to a company and sign a bunch of escrow papers and stuff like that. I've got a cousin, I can't reveal too much, I'm signed an NDA, but I've got a cousin who is in the middle of creating a company that's going to do this with Ethereum. And so it's incredible. Imagine the scene in Iron Man where he's about to fly through a building, and he asks Jarvis to buy that building in front of him so I can blow it up.
How quickly can we buy this building?
Quickness of transaction is going to happen in real life. Well, maybe not that fast, but I'm just saying today it takes
transaction confirmations.
It takes like 30 days, ACH here, sign here. I just freaking did a refi. It took forever. Talked to so many people. They wanted to know everything about me. In the future, when I have a Bitcoin account, I can say, here's a pristine collateral where you can check it out right now. You can go right now, check this address. That's my address. Here's proof. And they're going to say, oh, great. Here's the money. Here's the loan that you wanted, right?
You don't even need escrow anymore. Now it's all smart contract.
No, exactly. The contract will deal for you. Music royalties. I'm a musician and I have a bunch of songs that, where I may have with other people. So where I have to now set this up properly and there's like a thing in DistroKid which makes it a little bit easier. But in the future, it's be even more easier where you can have just a smart contract, and it just kind of does that for you. There's a guy already doing it in New York, I believe. Got his company's name, but these things are coming, right? And they're already here, but they're just not mainstream enough yet. The first few crazy early adopters are taking it. And I always say, hey, Bitcoin, 1% or so of the population owns it, and not even close to 1% own a significant amount, defined as about $500 of Bitcoin. It's super early. And I'm so glad that I've got the education this year, by the way. This year is when I started learning about Bitcoin in January, so that I can take advantage of this amazing stuff that's happening in the market.
Can I give you an imaginary event? If the market crashed, let's say S&P 500 drops 30%, right? So I've been researching when they drop, usually about 30% S&P 500. And let's say at the same time, Bitcoin drops its normal 70% because of this cycle. The last 3 cycles around 70 to 80, right? So then Bitcoin, let's say it hit 100 and it went back all the way down to 30,000, and S&P 500 drops the 30%. And you have your 50,000 like you're in your scenario previously. How would you allocate that 50,000? And how many times would you DCA in on each side?
Got it. 30,000 would go to VTSAX and 20 grand would go to Bitcoin. I know Bitcoin, there's anybody that is in love with Bitcoin is going to be like, what? It should all go to Bitcoin. I get it. I get it, but even though Bitcoin is my smallest position, I'm sized pretty good enough that I'm like comfortable with it. I'm okay if that position goes to zero, right? It won't, but I'm okay with it if it goes to zero because other things in my life will kind of keep me afloat. And even so, my idea here is in life is that I have a couple of things which either one of them or two of them or all of them except one can go to zero and I'll be okay in life. So that's kind of the way I'm thinking about it. And so that's how I size things. And I know there's like Bitcoin maxis that will like hate me for buying stocks and real estate, but I'm just not that kind of an investor. I'm kind of a
it's your risk style, right? That's your risk portfolio. You're willing to put this much of your portfolio in crypto, and that totally makes sense. But the question I have for you is, it seems you know that a lot of these smart contracts and dApps are being built on Ethereum. Why are you not putting anything into Ethereum? And why is it all going into Bitcoin?
It's got to be the foundational asset itself. So Ethereum has a no supply cap. You can completely make more and more Ethereum. That's where I get a little bit, I start to think a little bit about why is an asset having an unlimited supply, and the fact that it's a centralized development team, centralized people that can quote shut it down. They can modify it. They have done it so in the future, in the past. So for example, the hack happened. A bunch of money got stolen and they forked it. There's a Ethereum Classic, Ethereum. That just tells me that you can reverse time in your blockchain and then essentially just kind of fork it like that. I just cannot be in an asset which is so malleable by people. Bitcoin is where it enters in the frame for me because 21 million, let's say if you wanted more than 21 million, you could, but you would have to get consensus. And that's really hard to get because we're a decentralized bunch of people. We're the owners, the dev team, the node operators are like super decentralized. And so the government cannot go to somebody and say, shut down Bitcoin or change Bitcoin to have the following thing. They can't. They cannot turn it off. They can certainly say the on-ramps and the off-ramps are now turned off or they're now monitored and we'll monitor everything you're doing. Exactly right. You can do stuff like that. But how could you possibly maintain a no Bitcoin policy where you can have a cold storage Bitcoin, you can have seed phrases hidden away or something like that? Not that everybody's doing that. I'm just saying that it's just not enforceable. So I think what's going to happen is, I think as people embrace it slowly, the Bitcoin tends to do this weird cycles where it goes up, crashes, and it starts to engulf other coins and their market share. So I'm really interested in the next crash to see what happens in the cycle. How does Ethereum behave? How does these Dogecoin and all these coins behave? And which ones go out of, just go out of business?
Can I give you my perspective on Ethereum?
Go for it, man.
Now that after the previous or the most recent EIP interaction onto the contract itself and Ethereum going to ETH 2.0, where now instead of proof of work, it's going to proof of stake and it's burning a lot more than it's building. It's now becoming a deflationary currency with all the development. And if you look at all the development activity, I believe you can look at it through GitHub. You can see that most of the dApps that are being created are on Ethereum. Although some are being created on Bitcoin and Cardano and all of those as well, Ethereum has the most developers on there. And I'm just kind of following like all the tech that's being developed on there. And that's where this is basing my answer from. I think at some point, Ethereum's market cap will overtake Bitcoin's. I don't think it's during this cycle, but I think it's during the next cycle that it'll happen as there's more adoption coming.
Yeah, the technological argument for Ethereum is certainly there, right? I have a different argument for these things. So my question is, why actually create crypto in the first place, right? Because you could do this without blockchain actually much faster without the involvement of blockchain. So why spend the resources to kind of create these things, right? The whole idea of having a blockchain and having something that is immutable, meaning unchanging, having a limited supply, the whole idea is to create an asset which is actually better than what we have today, right? Better than gold, better gold if you must, right? Where my kind of head is at is this, just like the index sort of a thing where I'm looking at the base layer. What is an index, right? We are investing in society. However, the human race moves. I literally have stocks in every single stock market in the entire globe because of the funds I'm holding. That means whatever the human race produces is what I get. I don't get to decide what the human race produces. The base layer here we're talking about in crypto, my mind says, okay, better money is going to win. Not better technology, but better money. And then better technology. A better money to me is something that actually holds value over time, has a better value proposition because it's limited supply, it's no centralized control. A lot of people that are involved that are passionate about it. So the network's big. So when you have a network that's big, you have people who adhere to certain, I don't want to say rules, but they're like, there's some societal or or the network effect is happening where people are sort of orange pilled in a way where they understand what Bitcoin is and why you should hold it. If you look at all the people who hold Bitcoin, right, a very small percentage actually trades. The most of it are a bunch of holders. You want that big bed of people who are like, I don't care what price this is at, I'm going to buy it. That's like kind of like me, right? I'm going to buy this. I'm going to hold this thing probably forever. And how do I take it out later? Maybe I'll take loans against it or something like that. I don't know. We'll see in 10 years. The thing here is we have a network of people who are so passionate that they're going to hold this thing no matter where it goes. They could drop to 2,000 tomorrow. We'll be holding and buying more and more. So when you have these things combining, a great network, a great supply ability to have only 21 million, where your cap cannot have more than that. No centralization, no governing body that can say, let's just change a few things and tweak a few things, and then, let's go back in time and revert an action. None of that can happen. You cannot take it down. So the only thing I'm thinking here is, this is the base layer, the base money of the internet that we needed, but we never had. And now we do. There is no other thing other than Bitcoin. In my head, Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin. And therefore, I'm buying this thing and I'm holding this thing. And sure, 100% agree with you. Technologically, other cryptocurrencies are doing crazy different things, right? That are like super awesome, cool stuff that they're doing. And the tech side of me is like, oh yeah, that's cool. But I'm not willing to put my money in it. Again, simplification is key for me. And Bitcoin is the thing that's going to take me there without worrying about what might be the next winner in tech space. What might be the better contract, what might have a faster transaction rate or something like that. Bitcoin on Lightning, for example, great transactions. You can send money to anybody over the world within seconds. Smart contracts are going to come in a massive way too. They're already here, but they're not being used massively, but they will be used on Bitcoin as well. These things will develop. It's just that we are moving, quote, so fast yet so slow that people think that the 10-year time frame that we've had this thing, that it's already old. Preposterous. This is a TCP/IP technology that we've got in our hand, and the internet, which is the metaverse, the future transaction of global giant banks transacting within seconds of each other and confirming transactions like that. There's no more nightly crazy big giant confirmation that takes 3 days to settle your funds. None of that shit. It's good. Sorry. It's all going to be it's all going to be super fast and accurate. By the way, accuracy, just look at accuracy. Today, when two banks talk to each other, there's tons of errors. In the finance space, the number of errors there exists in the finance space, you could run Bitcoin with that amount of energy. There's a lot happening there. And also, my personal favorite, the fact that proof of work, not proof of stake, is used by Bitcoin means that we are going to continually push to renewables. Because guess what? You don't want to pay more and more and more for electricity, do you? While there's a giant ball of fire giving you electricity for free. Guess what? If I'm a Bitcoin miner, I'm going to be thinking, how do I do solar pretty well? How do I get near a waterfall? How do I use a lava flow to get? It is going to propel people, because they want money, to use renewable energy. And also the proof of stake thing, I call it POS with the poop sign in the back. If you have tons of, Bitcoin, you have more voting power. It's like, I don't believe in that. I think the fact that Bitcoin nodes can be, decentralized, developers are decentralized. Let's say country X says, we're going to take over 51% of the network. They would create a global chip shortage if they tried to do that. Do you know that? They will actually create a global chip shortage.
There kind of already is one right now.
There already is one. But let's say if they wanted to do this, they would create a global chip shortage. But if they're smart, they would actually create their own chip factories and then create the machines and then go off grid or something and then try to attack the system. Okay, let's say they do that. When you get to a point where you can attack the system and hold 51% ownership of the network, you have to retain it for a very long time, because guess what? You have to continue to make sure that the validating incorrect transactions, I'm assuming that as a bad actor, you're pumping in bad transactions, they're going to start creating this fake chain, right? Well, eventually that computational power that's required for them to hold that position is going to require more and more power. They're going to run out. And then the nodes will decide, oh, wait a minute, this chain isn't correct. This one was the correct one. And boom, you have order restored. And by the way, people who have their own nodes, they can choose and say, oh, that's a bad actor. We can ignore that bad actor. And guess what? The network is big enough and connected enough that this can happen. We can actually ignore bad actors by literally opting them out of the system and say, okay, don't go through that bad actor to process your transactions. There's so many fail safes involved. And when you talk to people who are Bitcoin maximalists, I'm not one, you come out with like this like
more
understanding of what this means to people, right? It's decentralization, it's freedom to people. I think it's a hedge against everything else I own, stocks, real estate, whatnot, cash, everything else, even my job. It's a hedge against that. If everything goes down, Bitcoin will survive, I believe, over the long term.
Would you take out any of your funds that you have in your index funds and allocate some of that more towards Bitcoin at any point? What would cause that conviction?
I don't think so, because the reason why is I have a certain plan with the indexes, how much I'm going to get and all that kind of stuff, and what I'm trying to kind of go for. I want to make sure that plan works out. I don't want to sabotage that plan.
That's the safety net. Yeah.
It's the safety net. Exactly. My family doesn't have like, oh, there's this plot of land that we haven't sold yet. No. There's no such thing. I'm it. I can't mess it around too much. I already did mess. Remember, I already messed around and lost a shit ton of money. And so I don't want to repeat that. And so I have to be a little bit more careful. Even though I believe I will make less money than Bitcoin in my indexes, I'm going to keep my indexes, keep my houses, probably buy even more houses, just so I have that diversification. I'm at the same time going to focus on acquiring more Bitcoin through my job, right? That's where my job kicks in. That's where I have to keep thinking about different ways to getting ahead in my job, where my workload goes down and my pay goes up. And there are ways to do that.
So Coinbase has now allowed you to direct deposit directly into them to be transferred into Bitcoin or Ethereum or whichever currency you want. Would you start doing that with a certain percentage of your check?
You're saying when you get a paycheck, just directly deposit it into Coinbase?
So yeah, when you go into, let's say you go into your HR account and it says, all right, what is your account number and what is routing number, right? Instead of that, you put the routing and accounting to Coinbase and you say, okay, I only want 10% to go into Coinbase. And when it hits Coinbase will say, oh, Aman wanted this to go to Bitcoin. So that all of that will go towards Bitcoin.
Got it. So like DCA over time, what you're saying, really important point that you're bringing up. DCA is great, right? Everybody should be thinking about that. And I'm actually getting to a point where I do want to DCA with Bitcoin, but I was thinking about Swan Bitcoin, not Coinbase, but we'll see. It's kind of made for that sort of DCA over time. Here's how my investing has worked out so far. I'm so passionate about it myself that I'm always on top of it in terms of investing. I'm never like, oh, I forgot to invest this month. No. I'm always like doing it. So I'm just like, and it's always different amounts because it's like I get checked and then, expenses are paid. Then I got some amount left and it all goes in and gets invested. I should put a DCA in for Bitcoin specifically, and I will. I just haven't done it right now. I wouldn't do exactly what you said, which is like 10% goes straight into Bitcoin. I got to do something like that where a certain number goes to Bitcoin and just keeps buying, doesn't matter what price it is.
I just know that automating it just makes it so much easier, right? And once you're like, okay, maybe not 10%, maybe just I'll start with 1 and then next year I'll increase it to 2 and at some point maybe I'll get to 10, right?
Exactly. Where I'm kind of coming from is like I just invest so heavily that I run out of money in my checking account, right? often, right? Like I'll
good thing, man.
Well, I've started to like, I think I had like $2,000 or 1.7 left, and I was like, shit, I don't have any money left. I'm like, I better get paid. And then I was reaching out to some accounting person. They're like, oh yeah, we're sending that right now. There's like, boom, 10 grand, boom, 19 grand. That's what an IT job does for you, And so then all of a sudden you're flush with cash again. So you're like, all right, let me go start buying assets,
Well,
so
how do you just ask your employer to pay you right there and then? How's that work?
Oh, they don't. They're lazy. They don't pay your invoices. So what I do is I send an invoice and I put a due date on it, but they sometimes ignore it. And so they're like kind of like dragging their feet. So I have to be like, hi, just checking out on this invoice number 123. They're like, oh yeah, it's coming.
This is your like Friday. 1099, right? This is your consulting. Got it.
That's right. Yeah. It's great, man, because imagine, I would recommend if you can do consult, because you can name your own price, but only if you can get a better price than you would if you got in a full-time position.
Of course.
Some people kind of like just consult and they don't even make that much money. So I'm like, oh, what are you doing?
When you're looking at that price that you're being paid, are you also looking at how much you can deduct with like, oh, the office at home, the car that I would have, the
are you kidding?
Healthcare, of course. Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like even the portion of the house where I'm sitting at, where the desk is at, it's like, okay, what is that rent wise? And my CPA takes care of a lot of that stuff.
And it's almost 7:30. So final question is, how important the miners are, and we have multiple companies, Bitcoin miners, especially mining companies. Have you looked into wanting to invest into the mining companies themselves?
Not the mining companies themselves, but I have looked into actually mining myself, but not the companies themselves. I don't don't pick and choose stocks. The only time I would pick and choose stocks is
like
the 2020 thing when a bunch of stocks kind of went down by 70%, like Wynn, for example, American Airlines, CCL, Norwegian, cruise liners. I mean, they're just like blasting out of the water, right? Because of COVID. And so I'm like, I have no choice but to buy these. I mean, I would have bought the index, but I was like, they're just too juicy. So I bought them all and they're like 100% up. So I'm like happy there. But generally speaking, I'm not going to buy single stocks. I'm kind of done with that, like you said. But I'm trying to educate myself on the rigging and kind of like, getting some type of nodes together and mining. It's just that I want to buy a small house somewhere in maybe Nevada, just to kind of have a situation where I'm kind of settled a little bit for a couple of years, let's say 5 years or more. That's when I can kind of like dedicate a space and build a rack or something like that. I'm kind of in a transition right now. We just moved from LA area to this Northern California. We're here just literally for a couple of months and we got to move on.
Oh,
so
you're moving back somewhere else now?
Yeah, I came from LA to Northern California. I'm going to go to Nevada, I believe at this point is the idea. And we want to get a small place there and then get a bigger place later on. And I think I might perhaps get a real estate license there. So that'll be kind of cool to have her work on that kind of stuff. And I can pick up that same thing too and sell some houses here and there. So we've got a couple of plans like that just to augment our income to kind of push more into the indexes and just to kind of get them, pumping a bit more.
Well, I live in San Jose, so I think you might be close by, maybe like Fremont or
I'm like
San Francisco.
Probably 20 minutes from you, dude. 25 minutes.
Got it. Well, I usually go foraging for mushrooms or clams, crabs, sea urchins. So if any of those sound interesting to you, come out with me before you head out and we can hang out a little bit.
To the supermarket or?
No, out to the ocean, man. Yeah, out to the oceans and the forest.
Nice. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, it was great to have you, man. I really appreciated this talk and it was so much to learn.
Hey, dude, no worries anytime. And by the way, if any of your viewers want to learn more, just go to crushthewealthgap.com. You'll see all my stuff there, YouTube, podcast, you name it. All of it is right there. And come say hi on TikTok. I record videos like Murray was saying. Every day I'm recording like 10 videos. So it's all for you guys. And there's nothing to sell. I'm just, a lot of people tell me though, what are you selling? I'm like, nothing yet. So I don't know. I don't have anything like that. But, I do play the drums. I might sell a drum course soon. I was thinking about that, but, we'll see.
Let me know. I want to take a look, maybe learn some drums.
Awesome, man. Sounds good.
Cool. Thanks, dude. Have a good night.
Right.
Bye.